Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Every Horror Film Where Horror is Forever. And today, if it looks like I am a Nike billboard, it's because I am. I'm
Man,
sponsored.
sponsored.
I'm sponsored by this horror review is sponsored by Nike. No, we are talking about The Omen, the classic from 1976. That's right. Um, Directed by Richard Donner, starring Gregory Peck, famous from his little cameo in Family Guy cutaway gag.
Where was he in Family Guy?
You don't remember the cutaway where it's like him driving? He's like, Peter's like, something, something, Gregory Peck's kids. And he's like, by God, help me. I will come back there and
I will
slap
turn
you
this
with
car around.
something like that. I don't know. It's
Yes.
it's funny. And every time I think of Gregory Peck, I think people think of the most famous movie he's in. I can't remember the
I don't
name.
know
To
Gregory
kill
Peck
to
that
kill a
well.
Mockingbird.
Yeah, there you go.
But no, I always think of Family Guy because that's what I do.
That's funny. I didn't know that was him, but now I'm gonna watch that episode tonight and see, I'm gonna realize it.
Exactly. So with the new release of a Omen prequel, the first Omen, which I have not seen, but I've actually heard pretty good things about. I'm actually quite surprised. I feel like most prequels kind of shit the bed.
Mm.
But I've heard some good things about this one, so I want to check it out. But before you watch the prequel, you got to watch the original. So, Jeff, before we get into this, give us what did you know about the Omen? Have you seen it before? Give us your thoughts. Kind of tell us where you're at with this.
I am embarrassed to say I knew almost nothing. I knew that it was remade in the 2000s, like every horror movie was,
Mhm.
but the original, I knew nothing about it. I didn't know that Richard Donner made it. I didn't know it came out months before The Exorcist. I didn't know this, that, and the other thing, man. I went in this completely blind. And it seems to be that we do that a lot here at every horror film. And I think that's a good thing because you get to hear a lot of first reactions. Have you seen this prior to us reviewing this?
I've seen it one time. Actually, I remember a couple years ago, I had surgery on my shoulder and I was out for the count for a couple weeks. And I was just sitting on my couch and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to watch a ton of horror movies I haven't seen. And The Omen happened to be one of them. And so this was the second time I've seen it since then.
Yeah. So, what was your reaction the first time you watched it, and what was your reaction this time watching it? Now that you're a little bit more vetted in horror.
Um, I had always heard about the movie, but I never heard of it like as a must see like The Exorcist or Halloween or A Nightmare on Elm Street, one of these staples that like you
Yeah.
must see. Everyone's like, yeah, it's The Omen, like it's a classic, check it out, whatever. But I gotta be honest with you, man. I've seen this movie the first time. I really enjoyed it. I watched it the other day. I really enjoyed it again. To me, this is a bona fide classic of a movie. There are numerous reasons why I think that, which we will get into. But for me, the two times I've seen it, the backstory of the film, kind of some of the stuff there, there's a lot that I like about this film. There are a couple things that I don't think age super well. Excuse me, but
I want to sleep
but
here.
I know, ridiculous. But for the most part, I really do enjoy this movie. I think it's severely underrated. And I don't mean like, oh my God, this movie doesn't get any credit. I mean more as, people say, yeah, it's a pretty good movie, like check it out. No, I think The Omen should be one of the, if you're gonna watch like a bunch of classics, I think
Yeah.
this has to be in the conversation, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's good. I don't think it's a
That's good.
that's good. I don't think it's an underrated one either. I think it is well renowned in the horror community. Obviously, with anything that took off in the 70s or 80s, it's got sequels out the ass. It's got a remake already. Now it's got a prequel. So obviously, there's something good about it. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I I recognize that this one is good and this one deserves at least first lobby in the Hall of Fame, but I wasn't feeling it. I
Wow.
I I
Oh my
wasn't feeling this one.
God.
I'll tell you why. I felt this one more than I felt the fog. That's no brainer. But this one,
Did it insist upon itself?
it kind of insisted upon itself. I did not care for it. it kind of rubbed me the way the Babadook did, man. Like where it kind of just, all right, yeah, here you go. Here's your gold medal. I got it. Well, I don't know. I got nothing bad to say about this movie, but it's just not for me. I touted The Exorcist when we reviewed that, obviously, and I wanted to go into this call avoiding comparing it to The Exorcist because I feel like everybody does that, but for good reason. I mean, if The Exorcist is Coca-Cola, The Omen is Pepsi, man. I mean, it's just the way it is, and because of that, and because of my bias towards The Exorcist, I think I'm not giving it a fair play. Although I recognize that this is a damn good movie. It is well acted. It is well written. I don't know. I'm hoping you can teach me something that I missed here because I picked up everything it was putting down, but it just I don't know
I
what it was.
it's funny that you mentioned that because I've seen online. Obviously, this movie came out, not too far after The Exorcist.
Well, this one came out in June '76, and I think Exorcist was December '76.
I think The Exorcist was in 74
Was it?
because it was 40 years or 73. I
What?
believe The Exorcist
Am I
was
just a
73.
complete idiot? Hold on. I thought this came out the same year as The Exorcist. Hold on. I got to look this up right. Yeah, Exorcist was '73, so The Omen was '76.
Come on, you got it. 40 years ago, they just came out with The
Well,
Exorcist
that's
movie.
that's what it is. Then that's exactly what it is. It was
Okay,
playing
well,
second fiddle. I thought it was
turn
just
turn the review off. Start over.
wow. I should have done my homework on that one, but yeah, that's what it was. It came after.
I've heard that comparison a lot, and I gotta be honest, I don't see it at all. I When I watch this movie, I don't think about The Exorcist because yes, while there is a religious horror story, um, I didn't I don't know, I didn't feel that way about it. I guess maybe I just didn't really think about it's trying to be The Exorcist because I didn't get that at all. Not saying that it isn't or it is. I think I kind of felt like it was its own movie. Yeah, it is has some similarities for sure, but to me, I really didn't get that vibe. This felt like its own film to me.
It's a very different kind of movie than The Exorcist. But the reason it gets compared is because of the subject matter and because of the edgy religious subject matter and
Right.
is it too taboo for film? Where Exorcist was too taboo for film at the time. The Omen wanted to capitalize on that, didn't quite hit that same taboo mark. So it's just
Right.
the subject matter when people compare it, obviously, and that's lazy, but it is what it is.
And I think religious horror is actually something I'm a big fan of when done right. I
Mhm.
think it can be incredibly effective. I think a lot of that has to depend on your spirituality, wherever you are on that line. But to me, most times it's done horribly. But there are a few instances when it's done well, and I actually enjoy it. And I feel like this movie did it well. It wasn't really necessarily do you believe or not believe. It was pretty much this is what's happening. You're either going to choose to do something about it or not. It didn't make me feel like I believe in a heaven and hell or
Yeah.
a good and evil. It just was like, no, there's evil, and either you're going to do something about it or you're not.
Yeah, it stated it as like an absolute truth, and it took the ball and it ran with it. Um, you know, one of the strongest parts of this movie is Richard Donner's directing. Richard Donner, I got nothing but good things to say about Richard Donner, man. Obviously, one of the greatest. He made two of the greatest films in history and Lethal Weapon. So, dude, there's nothing. I got no notes for Richard Donner. You know what I mean? But I just why is it that the Omen is not sticking with me? What I mean, let's get into it, man. What could it be? Because I want to figure it out because I feel like I'm missing something because it's got all the pieces. I'm
It's
just not
because
feeling
there's
it.
a child actor.
It's not even that. I thought I thought it was that. I thought it was like, oh God, we're gonna hear about the 5-year-old doing the evil voice. I don't want to do it. It wasn't even that because he was absent for most of this movie. And when he was on screen, he was acting like a 5-year-old playing, like there wasn't even cameras rolling. So it wasn't that. I don't know. I hope to figure it out tonight.
I don't know. We'll see. So let's get into this thing. In Rome, Italy, on June 6th, 1966, at 6 a.m. Did you get that? How many sixes are in
Oh,
there?
I picked up on that.
I don't know if this is the first movie. It's probably not to ever do the whole 666, but I feel like this was maybe the first film to do it where it wasn't like a running joke like now it is, where it's like
Yeah,
666.
it is overdone. It's like to the point where it's like I associate 666 with like punk rock tattoos. I don't associate 666 with like religion or anything like
Exactly.
that.
So Gregory Peck, character named Robert Thorne, he's a an American diplomat. He's on the way to the hospital. He's rushing there. His wife is going into labor, and she gives birth to a stillborn. And I don't and some of this stuff I'm not 100% sure of. Maybe I didn't understand it all, or maybe this is explained in sequels which I haven't seen, or the prequel that we haven't seen. So I just want to preface that. He gives birth to a stillborn, or she does, and he kind of comes to this this crossroads. He's talking to a priest there, and the priest is like, "Look, your wife wants to be happy. You can just adopt a son that we have here." And he's like, "No, no, no, I don't want to do that." And eventually he says yes. He ends up giving in, and he accepts this child, and he covers this up. He never tells his wife that, at least I don't think he does. Tells his wife that, hey, we adopted this kid. It is very much played off for the next 5 years that this is their son, and she is not aware of that. Now, I'm going to ask you, because you are a father, if you were put in that position, what would you do?
Shit. If I was put in the position of him, hell no. Straight up, no way. And that's not even knowing what's going to happen 5 years from now. Hell no. And you're right. I don't think he ever had a conversation on screen with his wife about that. As far as she knows, that's the one that she birthed. So, little bit of keeping secrets there. A little bit of that's a big deal. Maybe towards the end of the movie, she started to pick up on the fact that something was wrong with him. But
Mhm.
you're right. I think she always believed that that was her kid, and that's probably part of the reason why she had so much emotional turmoil in the second and third acts. Um, yeah, just swapping babies at the request of a priest. That's
Hey,
even for the '70s. That's weird.
maybe Gregory Peck could have avoided what happened to him in this movie if he'd have
Oh
just been
yeah,
like, nah.
yeah. So I guess the moral of the story is if someone asks you to swap your babies, just don't do it.
Exactly, exactly. So we a couple years go on, we kind of see this timeline. They're growing up with the kid, he's a cute kid, whatever, nice, normal, happy family. He gets a job to be a U.S. ambassador or diplomat or whatever in England. So they move to the UK, and it kind of takes place about 5 years later, is where we kind of jump to. And they got a nice house, they're rich, they got all these everything that a person could want, and they're having a fifth birthday party for Damien. That's the kid's name, Damien. Which this film has seemingly ruined the name Damien for generations of kids,
I've never met a
because
Damien in my life.
I don't know if I know a Damien, and when you do, at least in my opinion, you think that's like, oh, that's like an evil name, that's a bad name. I've always
Yeah,
thought that it's because of this movie.
that's where this came from. Yeah.
So, um, they're having a big birthday party for him in the backyard at the house and all this stuff. And we have this nanny. She's kind of carrying him and holding them, and then she ends up seeing this dog kind of out in the distance, and she looks at it. And she's kind of in a trance. A few minutes goes by. They're hanging out in the backyard for a party, and then all of a sudden, the nanny is at the very top of the house, and she's got a noose around her neck. And the classic scene that everyone knows, Damien, it's all for you. And everyone's like, what's she doing? And then she jumps and it snaps her neck and she crashes through the window. Um, your thoughts on that scene? Because I'm assuming this is the first time you've ever seen that.
First time I've ever seen it. First time I've ever seen any clip from The Omen. Now that I
Mm.
think about it in retrospect, no, I never saw that. Awesome, awesome, awesome practical effects. Practical effects will win every single time. Doesn't matter what the decade is. So that practical effect of that cadaver or mannequin or body bag, whatever, swinging down in that noose, that'll stick with you. I don't want my kid to see that. That's for sure. Not even the worst kill in the movie, but right off the bat, dude, you're in for it.
I've got to be honest with you, and I told you this before you went into the movie because I kind of wanted to plant a seed in your head. I don't know if it succeeded or not. To me, this movie has some of the best kills in a horror film ever. In my opinion, I truly believe that. Are they the goriest? No. Are they the most practical, over the top? No. But just there's not a lot of deaths in this movie, but when they happen, they are very effective and they're all different. And I it just works it works for me.
Yeah, the deaths in this movie, the kills in this movie, except for maybe one of them, they're very punchy. And they punctuate a long stream of very slow dialogue scenes, not a lot going on. And then something happens, the camera doesn't cut away. Richard Donner and his DP, they got one shot at this. They got one shot at making this look good. You're going to see the whole cut. You're going to see the whole scene, right? And it's all practical. It's very well done. Yeah, they're not, I can't say they're the most creative or the most horrifying kills,
Mhm.
but because of how real they are and how grounded they are, and within the context in which they're presented, yeah, I'm happy to have that conversation about top 20 horror kills. Omen's got at least two of them.
Dude, nothing's beating the Babadook where the kid gets slammed up against the wall.
Nice and slow, just get slammed up against the wall.
Fucking classic. Um, so essentially at this point, everyone's kind of freaked out. Why did this happen? I don't understand. There's a bunch of kids that witness this thing. It's kind of a traumatic event. A couple days go by, I guess, and a new nanny shows up, Mrs. Baylock. And boy, does she have a pretty big part in this movie. She shows up and she's got this very creepy, mysterious kind of look to her. As soon as she walks in the room, something's off.
Mhm.
And she walks in, and I got to be honest with you, man. She works a lot for me as a character, is what she does. But I don't know if this movie is a play on the typical rich parents who don't spend time with their kids type thing, because she just comes right in the house. She's like, "Hey, I'm the new nanny. I'm gonna go introduce myself to your son, and you can't come." And they're like, "Okay." It's very odd how they just let that happen. I don't know if they're just playing up to their character where I'm busy and rich, I don't have time to deal with my son. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of subtext about like the snooty upper class parents who don't, I mean, right off the bat, right from the jump, bad parent, you swap babies, right? Go on beyond that.
Yeah.
You're wrapped up in your work. You're allowing this lady who basically has a forged resume to just insert herself into your house and then into your child's room without so much as a question until she gets there. You don't make it a big deal when she brings in a wild Rottweiler in your house, among many other examples. Yeah, I think there is subtext here intentionally with between the lines about bad parenting is the reason for bad children. I think there's a conversation there.
Sure, absolutely. So she sneaks in, and then as soon as she gets to the room to meet Damien, she's like, no worry, I'm here to protect thee. So we are very, very much aware that there's something going on here. She has been put in this position intentionally, to protect what we will reveal later. So that kind of goes on, and then we get the scene where a couple days later or so they're getting ready to go to church, and uh, Kathy or whatever, Richard Peck's wife is like, "Hey, get Damien ready for church," and then Mrs. Baylock's like, "No, I don't think he needs to go to that," and then she's like, kind of like a chess match with her. And if that's me, like if I hired a nanny or someone's working for me, and I'm like, "Hey, that's your job, get my kid ready for church," and then I come back and you're like, "No, he's not going to church," I'd be like, the fuck are you talking about?
Whoops, you're the parent now.
Yeah. Goodbye. And
Hmm.
so they kind of put up this fight, and eventually, Kathy wins or whatever. And this is kind of one of the first scenes where things really kind of kick off. They're driving to church, and all of a sudden, Damien, he starts to get this, he starts to kind of freak out a little bit. Like they're pulling up to the church, and he gets very, very antsy. And then as soon as they pull up to the church and they get out, he starts like beating on his mom's head or whatever. He starts like scratching her, and he starts freaking out and yelling, because Damien is the Antichrist. That's right.
Who'd have thunk it?
I would have never thought watching a movie called The Omen. Uh, so yeah, he pulls up to the church and he's like, I ain't going in there. And he starts freaking out, and they pull away. And then the parents are kind of like, maybe he's just having a bad day or something. So we we get this very slow build to what will be the ending here. And that's one of the things I like about this film is it is very much a slow build. It's it might, I think it's got a payoff that's worth it. Maybe not for some people, but to me, it's just a very classic slow build until you get to the ending with lots of stuff happening in between.
Yeah, it's people have described it as a slow burn, or a slow rollout. I
Hmm.
fully see that, man. This was a slow movie. Not to be disrespectful, obviously, but I'm surprised I didn't fall asleep. It is a very slow paced movie. It really lets you develop things all the way down to Gregory Peck's dialogue delivery. I mean, it's slow, it's calculated. There's time to let the lines breathe. There's pregnant pauses. It's very old school style of acting. So it's paced very consistently throughout, and that pace is very slow and very easy to follow because it's pretty easy to get lost in this. But um, it's some people would say that it going slow is a detriment to it. Do you feel like it should have picked up the pace a little bit?
This movie comes, I think it's a minute, or excuse me, not a minute, fuck, an hour and 50 minutes.
Hmm.
So it's right up there at 2 hours basically. I while I do think the slow burn is worth it, and I do like slow burn movies, especially if the payoff is very much worth it. I think there probably was some scenes, some things they probably could have cut out to maybe get this thing about 20 minutes shorter. But this movie can feel like it drags sometimes. I do see your point, and I think that for someone that hasn't seen it, especially being a 70s movie, I could see someone watching this and be like, man, this movie is taking a long time to get to where it needs to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I don't want to say that's unusual for a horror film, but man, when I was watching this, I honestly felt more like I was watching a mystery. Like I was watching not a
Yeah.
who done it, but like a Da Vinci Code. You know what I mean? Where like we're learning clues, we're unraveling the mystery, putting two and two together. I felt like that, and that would be fine if in the background scary shit was going on. But I kind of just feel like it was like an episode of Ancient Aliens, where I was kind of just unraveling these cool
Hmm.
things and I'm learning like, oh, 666 appears here, but it also appears here. Like, I don't know, man. For the 70s, that's great.
Hmm.
But for right now, maybe I just got TikTok brain and I don't even have TikTok, I don't know. I just feel like it's hard for audiences who have never seen the Omen to get into it with that. And that's not because it's bad writing, because it is very good writing, but I don't know. I felt like it was a little slow in places.
Sure. No, it definitely is very, very slow in places. I could see why you'd say that because even me watching it the other day again, I was kind of like, damn, like,
It was
I
a
went into
long hour and 50 minutes.
it's very much feels like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Did you know the score for this film won an Oscar?
So that's something I wanted to talk about. I forgot about that when in the first scene when she got hung. The score when you're looking at the dog, I can't describe it, but oh my god, quickly entered my top 10 horror scores I've ever heard. What the
Mhm.
hell was that? the
Are you
the
talking about
weird like
the brow, 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 brow,
well,
brow, brow?
it was yeah, it was the weird like
Yeah,
springy effect on top of the music, but then it was also the Latin chorus. So, dude, right up my alley. That was weird. That was powerful. That was encompassing of the sound and aged tremendously. Holy shit. My favorite thing about this movie is the score. That was amazing. I mean, tell
yeah.
me tell me you have the same opinion of that score.
I agree. I love the score. I think most people do. It was done by Jerry Goldsmith, I believe. I think he's done a bunch of stuff. I don't know his catalog, but yeah, the choir, the oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
like I when that's done like effectively and it's in the right setting and mood, it's perfect. And that shit always kind of freaks me out a little bit. But they did a great job with the score. It's definitely one of the best parts of the movie, and I'm glad you enjoyed that. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's why they won an Oscar.
Yeah, definitely. That's and the scene where she's staring at the dog in the first one, the first kill, and
Hmm.
it's like wow, 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 like doing that
Yeah,
kind of sound. Like, dude, if I put that on some good headphones and I listen to that, I would just like it would be like Get Out, where he's sinking into the chair. That's how I would feel if I listened to that.
exactly. Yeah, if you watch this movie, watch it with the sound up because you
Yeah.
there are some parts where I have noticed where it maybe just because of the quality of the 70s, some of the dialogue can be very soft and you can't quite hear. But if you got that thing cranked up and you hear that score, it really does it for you.
Yeah, added points right away for that.
Sure. So we're kind of going through this again, very slow build. One day we're at the office with Gregory Peck's character. I know that's not his name, but I just like calling him Gregory Peck.
That's fine. That's who it is.
So he's in the office. All of a sudden, his assistant's like, "Hey, there's this priest that's dying to see you. He wants to see you." He's like, "I don't know who this guy is. Whatever, send him in." He comes in, and this guy's probably my favorite character in the whole film. He gives me Dr. Loomis kind of vibes a little bit.
Yep.
He's not quite Loomis, but he just kind of gives this like unhinged, like evil is coming tonight.
Yeah, yeah. You got that intense look in his eyes, like he could be crazy, but also that he's seen something.
Exactly. So, he walks into the office and he just straight up is like, he's like, you need to repent to Christ. You need to accept him. Something, something, the blood, not
Hmm.
the body and the blood. Don't get
The
confused
body
there.
and the blood.
Uh, God, I'm so mad about that. And he's kind of going on and on, and Gregor Peck's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, get out of my face! And all of a sudden, he's like, I know about your child, and then he just kind of stops. He's like, what do you mean? And this is kind of when we get reintroduced to the fact that their original child died, and all of a sudden he adopted a son. And he's like, "What do you know about my son?" He's like, "I was there. I was there when was given birth by its mother." He's like, "You mean my wife?" He's like, "No, by this woman." And he's like, "No." And then they're like yelling back and forth. It's a very tense scene, and that guy ends up getting thrown out of the building. But it's very intense, and that's kind of when we start to figure out we already know there's something not right, but something is not right and something bad is going to happen. I really like that scene.
So, in that priest's dialogue, he started to say something when he was hauled out by security. I think he was talking about how Damien's mother was. I saw its mother. It was a. It was a. What did he say? It seemed like it
I
ended on a cliffhanger.
I don't know exactly what it was. I'm not going to say I ruined the prequel for me because I don't think I did, but I did just a little bit of research, and apparently a lot of that is explained in the prequel. So I didn't want to read too much because I was like, I don't want to ruin it for myself.
Yeah.
But apparently, from what I assume, I could be completely wrong, but Father Brennan's character is explored more in the prequel, along with other characters and the mother. So if you look it up, you can find it if you're curious. But for the sake of this, I didn't want to look into it anymore. But he does say something. I'm not 100% sure what it is.
I watched the movie with subtitles on. For scenes like this where there's a lot going on, I could miss something critical. And sure enough, I did. When he started to say the word of what it was, there was a lot of noise, but the subtitles said she was a like a jackal, like a JACK, and but it said dot 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 JACK dot dot dot. She was a jack and then he got pulled out of the room. So
I'm
I was
pretty
like,
sure that's what it is.
a jackal, like is
Yeah.
what I assumed it was, but it never came back to. But apparently, that was like a big like head scratcher moment for the movie, and
Yeah.
I watched it with subtitles, and I was like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah. I don't even know what a jackal is, so I'm not
A
gonna pretend
jackal?
like I
It's
do.
like a coyote.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
All right, well, I don't need to see the prequel
There you go.
then. It's given birth by a coyote. So yeah, I'm assuming that that's expanded upon, but we get that scene, he gets thrown out, and it's really interesting. And this is what another aspect of this movie I like is there's this photographer going around. His name is Keith Jennings, played by David Warner, and he's always just going around taking pictures. He's a photographer or a news reporter or something, and the priest gets thrown out. He's like, "Hey, father," and he turns around and he takes a couple pictures of me. He's like, "Thank you." And we'll explain why that happens later on, but he's going around taking, he just seems to be everywhere where Gregory Peck's character is, and he's taking pictures. um and we'll kind of expand upon that later. The next scene we kind of get to is the safari park where they're driving around.
Mhm.
And the, I'm not going to say I dislike this scene. I, I don't know, I guess all the baboons are kind of annoying to me. I'll be honest. I don't know. It works apparently when they filmed this scene. Like they didn't feed the baboons or whatever like for a
Mm,
whole day, so they knew that they would be like really pissed off. And then apparently, I think they like attached food and put food on the car, so that way they would run to it. They were like losing their minds. It's very effective.
yeah.
I mean, it's a good scene. But I like some of the aspects where Damien like walks up to the giraffes and then they like run away. And the mom's like, "What?"
Yeah.
Mom's like, "What the world?" And then like he walks up to like this other group of animals and they like run away. And she's like, "Why does everyone hate my kid?"
Yeah. Dude, if first of all, could you imagine like a drive-through safari park like that nowadays where you could just drive your own car and hopefully don't run over a baboon? How crazy is
Do
that?
they still not have those? I figured they did somewhere.
I feel like if they have safari tours, they're guided, you hop in a
Yeah.
bus or something, but dude, driving your own car through a baboon pen? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that you could easily run all of them over and then like you're
Right.
screwed.
I was expecting her to do that. I was expecting there to be some animal violence in the movie, but no, when the baboons attacked her car, man, it looked real. I could tell they weren't stuffed animals. They filmed the jumping on the car scenes. It was pretty good. Um, nice touch. Nice creative touch, I think, with the drive-through safari and the animals attacking. You'd see like dogs. Cujo was a thing around this time. You'd see dogs, you'd see lions or like sharks in an aquarium. Like you'd expect to see those, but movies really don't work with baboons a lot. So especially horror movies. So it was a nice touch. It was a nice original touch that I don't think I've seen in a while.
Sure. So they kind of have this freakish scene, and then they go back home. They're like, "What's going on?" Like we've had all these weird instances with Damien. Like, it is what it is. Whatever. And then they actually mentioned this point. It's kind of I always kind of thought about it. It's interesting. They're like, "Have you noticed he's never been sick before?" They
Hmm.
bring that up, and I was like, "That's kind of interesting." Like, imagine if you had a child, he's 5 years old, and he's never been sick before. Would that not be something you'd be like, "That's kind of weird"? Like, my kid's never been sick before. Like,
We,
kids are always getting sick.
you would definitely notice it before 5. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, that's a noticeable thing for sure.
Yeah, I guess Gregory Peck's too busy doing Family Guy. He's like, I don't.
I will turn this car around.
So they go through that, and then we have another scene where I think Gregory Peck's at like a rugby game or something, and then the priest shows up again, Father Brennan. He's like, "Meet me at the park tomorrow at 5," and then he just walks off. And then Gregory Peck's like, "This guy stopped following me around. Fine, I'll meet you at the park." And then again, the photographer's there, and he takes a picture of him, and he saves it, and we see him developing these pictures and kind of some other quick scenes. And I always love the classic, like when you're in the room with the red light and you're developing the picture, and
Yeah. I've
I
always wanted to do that. I've never been in
same.
that room.
I've always wanted to try that. It just looks so much fun.
Yeah.
And he's taking these pictures and he's looking and he notices there's these marks kind of going through each image. He notices it with the picture of the nanny had kind of had something like going around her neck like a mark. And then every picture he's taken of Father Brennan, he's had like a slash going up through like the top of his shoulder area, and that plays a part a little bit later. But it is interesting, something that they're trying to kind of put in your mind. Um, I've had a lot of people, because of what happens in this movie, a lot of people say Final Destination kind of got a lot of inspiration from this film. Could you see that maybe?
I could see that. Yeah, I thought of that towards the end of the movie, like how, you know, like especially when the priest is running away from the park meeting and like the lightning is striking all around him, and then it strikes the fence that he jumps off of. Like, yeah, definitely Final Destination vibes from, at least from his kill and from the big one at the end, where it's just kind of like complete luck of the draw, but also very calculated. So, yeah, I'd be interested to look into the making of Final Destination and see how much they took from the Omen skills because I bet you it's something.
Yeah, I agree. So this next scene is kind of where stuff's already happened, but shit really starts to kick off. One of my favorite scenes. He meets the priest at the park, and he's talking to him, and he's rambling about some religious mumbo jumbo. He's like, "What do you mean that you told me my wife was in danger? Like, tell me." And this is kind of where we get some backstory. He reveals basically that Damien is the Antichrist,
Yeah.
and that his wife is pregnant again. But this time, you know, Damien being the Antichrist, he's going to kill her, he's going to kill the unborn child, and he's going to kill you. And you have to kill him. Now, I don't know about you, but imagine like meeting a priest at the park and he's just like, hey, you got to kill your son. He's the Antichrist.
You know what? Honestly, I believe you. No one
I,
is more convincing than a crazy rambling priest in a park.
I feel like this works very well in the 70s. If you
Yeah.
had someone that happened, like if someone did that like in this day and age, they'd be like, honestly, you know what? They might believe you. They'd be like, okay,
It's
they
like,
might.
at this point, man, all right, let's just go on with it.
He's like, fine, I'll do it. I don't care. And they're kind of arguing with each other, and he's telling me, he's like, you need to go to Israel and meet this guy. He's gonna tell you how to do it. And he's telling him, Gregor Peck's just blowing him off. He's like, you're full of it. I don't believe you. He walks away, and the priest is like, we'll see you. I'll see you in hell someday. Um, this is where it kicks off. The priest, he's walking away. All of a sudden, big storms coming in, lots of leaves blowing, wind going, and he's holding up his cross. He's like, it's getting ready to get crazy, and then he's running, trying to get to the church. All of a sudden, lightning bolts start coming down on him. He's trying to get into the church. He's the um the soundtrack in the back is the choir. It's going off. It's really building up, and to me, one of the best death scenes ever ever. Lightning strike hits the top with like a little metal pole or whatever, comes down, and he's just like, ah, and then just impales him through the ground. He just like stands there like this. Fucking
Yeah.
A plus for me, dude. A
And
plus.
yeah, and not in an and impales him not in a way that you'd expect. Like normally, like if I were to think of like someone getting impaled in a movie, it'd be like very like almost cartoony where they're like, it's like through the chest and they're like speared up like a statue.
Correct.
No, dude, this goes through the through his traps, through his back, and like out through his ribs, and he's just like stuck there like a scarecrow. That
Yep.
was that was dope. It was very real, very grounded. You felt the thud when it hit the ground. Yeah, dude. When you told me before this movie that there was a kill in this movie that is like one of the best ever, I thought it was that one, especially
Yeah.
after the next two kills or so. I was like, that must be the one because that was dope. That was crazy. And you see the with the foreshadowing of the shadow in the developed pictures. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But
Absolutely.
that was a dope kill. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I look forward to watching this movie again just because I knew that was gonna happen. I was like, dude,
Yeah.
this kill is sick. So yeah, the priest dies. He gets impaled by a steel pole or whatever. And so
And they
It,
show his body in the newspaper.
yeah,
Like
that
like his corpse on a pole is in the
yeah,
newspaper.
that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's not like super gory, where it just kind of looks like he's just kind of like
When's the
hanging
last time
out.
you saw a corpse on the front page of a newspaper?
Yeah, I don't know. That's true. I don't know, but yeah, hey, it's the 70s. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
So yeah, awesome kill there. The priest dies, and then we get this other scene where Gregor Peck goes home. All of a sudden, he's been told his wife is pregnant. He doesn't believe it. And then his wife, she's very agitated. She's acting moody. Damien's like getting on her nerves. She's trying to get the Miss Baylock to come. She's like, "Come get this kid. I'm tired of dealing with him." And that's when she says she's pregnant. And she's like, "I want an abortion." And he's like, "No, absolutely not." And so we have this other kind of conflict going on here. And that's kind of how we figure that out, that he's very agitated. Um,
Why was he so adamantly against her terminating the pregnancy? That's what I don't understand. And I feel like it was explained later on, but why was he like, no? Like, especially after what the priest said,
right.
why did he like not take any time to consider it?
I I don't know. Maybe there's something we missed, where it's explained or kind of maybe hinted at. But you would think. I mean, hindsight's 2020, but you would think after you've been told this, you find out the preacher died. Like you might be like, you know what? Considering, I guess it depends on where your stance is on that. But if you knew what you knew later, I would be like, yes,
Yeah.
we, we are going to go through with this, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there was a scene where he might have explained his reasoning for objecting to it, but him objecting to it kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then he leaves and goes and sees like a therapist, and this is where we get like another really good scene. A scene that I feel like we've seen recreated a million times. The mom, Mrs. Baylock, and Damien are home. The mom's like fixing up a plant that's like above the house or something like that. And we get this scene. It's very creepy, but very effective. Damien's just in his room. He's riding on a tricycle, going in a circle, in a circle, in a circle. He's going around, and then we just get this Mrs. Baylock. She's just kind of like, like, and then she opens the door because she's protecting the Antichrist. That's why she was put there. And we get the scene where he goes around on a bike and he's just running and running and running and running, and he doesn't see his mom, and he hits the little table she's standing on, and she kind of falls and she's hanging by the banister, and the kid's just looking at her, and then she slips and falls, lands right on her stomach, like face first, and it's like, damn, boom.
Yeah. Now I thought she was gonna die in that scene, but I get it. It was foretold. Couple things about that scene. Damien doing that to his mom was accidental. It didn't. It wasn't intentional, like an evil child would be. Um, that was a great choice. I think. I think
Hmm.
if they cut to Damien being willfully evil too soon, it would have been hokey.
Correct.
But 5-year-olds, they underdeveloped 5-year-olds still lack that conscious decision making. So it's good that it was accidental. Um, Double-edged sword about the scene though, when she was falling through the air and she did this super like unnatural twist of her body just so she could land on her pregnant belly. That was a little goofy for me, man. I wasn't
Yeah,
feeling that.
it is a bit strange. You think they might have. She's kind of like, oh.
I thought, yeah, exactly. They're like, like
Yeah.
it was so goofy, but I thought they were gonna do something with the fishbowl. Like the way they kind of like slow mode on the fishbowl shattering on the floor. I was like, oh, she's gonna fall in the broken glass.
Yeah.
No, none of that happened. She just like did a really weird, just like
It's like
cat turn and just fell on her
yeah.
belly.
It's like in real life you would. I mean, the fall wasn't that far, but if you did, you probably either would fall on your back or land on your legs.
Fall on your legs. You do not have that much time. Were you falling from a planking position? You don't have that
Yeah.
much time to alligator roll over. I don't know. That,
You're
that
lo-
part was a little goofy.
you would turn into a Joe Swanson TV dinner.
Yeah, basically, dude.
A little quick fact about that scene I kind of found interesting. So the fishbowl that you mentioned, apparently Richard Donner was extremely against killing like any animals in this film.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to kill any goldfish by doing that scene. So apparently he bought a pack of sardines and painted them orange.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like that's funny. He's like, dude, we ain't killing no goldfish. We're
It's so
gonna
funny.
paint
Like
these sardines.
he'll put a family of baboons in the way of a moving car, but he won't like let a goldfish fall on the floor. You know.
Nope, can't do it. Can't do it. So, and this next part's very interesting. This is where we kind of get some more backstory. So, um, Gregory Peck gets a call from the photographer Jennings, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to come to my flat, like check out these photos." And he's like, "I know I damaged your camera. I'm sorry." He's like, "No, no, no. It's something different." He comes there, and this is where we get the backstory about the photos, where we saw the priest how he died, and they kept showing the pictures where he's got like the cross or the whatever going through him, and that's how he died. We have the picture of the nanny with the thing going around her neck when he took the picture. That's how she died. And then we have a picture of the photographer that he kind of accidentally took in the mirror, and he's got this kind of going through like his neck. Very Final Destination
Yeah.
esque. Um, and so we kind of get this backstory about the priest, and they go to his little place he lived, and apparently he had cancer. He was shooting up on morphine, so he was trying to stay away from something. So he was, and they kind of start to they do a lot of so much like reading scripture and saying it means this, means that. I couldn't
Yeah.
keep up with all that. I kind of got lost. Luckily, I kind of knew what they were getting at anyway, but I
With like the
couldn't keep
poem
up.
and everything. Yeah.
I couldn't keep up with all that shit. But
Yeah.
basically they're like, hey, 666 is bad, and yeah, your
Yeah.
son's the
A
antichrist.
whole bunch of exposition was dumped on us in a very slow fashion, but still a lot. Where the photographer was like, "Your son was born at 6 a.m. on the sixth day of the sixth month, but also on that day there was a shooting star, but also that shooting star turned into the star of David or something, and also the eternal sea and enemies on both shore." And then I was like, dude, hold on, man. Like,
I'm
give
so
me something.
lost.
Like, give me one thing at a time. I know we're moving slow here, but hold on.
Exactly. So, um, and then after that, they leave. They're traveling to Italy because they're gonna go back to the church or back to the hospital where Damien was born to figure all this out. They get there. Of course, the church is burned down. It's no law, or excuse me, the hospital's burned down. All the files were destroyed in a fire. Classic. They're screwed. Then they learn there's a doctor or a priest that was there, Father Spoleto or whatever, and they go and find him, and they're like, he was there the night it happened. Maybe he remembers and he knows. And they get there and they find this guy, and he's all deformed and messed up from the fire, so he can't even speak, talk. He hasn't done anything in years. He can just kind of write with his hand. He writes something out basically explaining to them like you need to go to the cemetery. So this is one of the parts of the movie, these couple scenes I'm going over really fast where I think it drags. It
Mhm.
is important, but I think they could have gotten there a lot quicker than having them go to like three different locations. Hey, you need to go here. Okay, and this guy says we need to go here. Okay, and then we got to go there. It's a lot of that, and it's just kind of like it's dragging a bit.
Yeah. Now, this was the priest that gave Gregory Peck the baby 5 years ago, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so yeah, so he spells out servet or some kind of unfinished word, and another priest in the room was like, "Oh, servetti or something. It's the cemetery, a couple miles off up the road." Like, I think Gregory Peck's like, "Oh, we need to go there and figure out what happened." Da Vinci Code. You know what I mean? Like, it's at this point, by the time they get to the cemetery and the time that whole sequence is over, dude, it's been like an hour since we've seen Damien, man. It's crazy. but it drags and it go here, find this, get the MacGuffin, go to this place, uncover the mystery about the mystery, interpret the mystery with the MacGuffin, and a little bit too much, a
Yeah.
little bit too much. But they go to this cemetery and they find two graves.
One thing I wanted to mention real quick, and I found this interesting. So when they go and visit the father that's like all that can't talk and stuff, when they're
Mhm.
talking to the other guy that's leading them there, they're talking about we've been praying for him, but he keeps rejecting it or whatever. They're like, well, what do you mean? Like he's a fault? Why do they keep rejecting it? Apparently, now I don't know if this is explained more in the prequel or not. I could be wrong, but Father Spoleto and Father Brennan were by the time they gave the baby to um Gregory Peck's character, they were Satanists at the time. They were not holy, I guess. And apparently they were Satanists under the praising, Satan or under the devil, and they did this. And I think the reason why the priest was so adamant about trying to make things right, Father Brennan was so adamant about making things right because he knew the Antichrist was coming back. So
Yeah,
he knew he had messed up, and he was trying to make good for his sins, make good for what his wrongdoings. So I guess that kind of puts into the forefront of why is this guy doing this, and that's kind of why he was on that so adamant about telling him, hey, you got to do something about this because I messed up years ago by doing this. You've got to fix it.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. That it adds gravitas to all these religious figures who are talking about something who, hey, let's be real, it's hard to believe, right? Especially if you're in Gregory Peck's situation. So these guys are adamant about it. The crazy priest earlier, he was like, "You'll see me in hell," and everyone's talking as if it's so matter of fact,
Mm-hmm.
so obvious that this 5-year-old is the Antichrist. So yeah, it's good that there's not even like a shadow of a doubt in any of these religious conversations. I think it adds weight to it all.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So, like you were saying, they go out and they find the cemetery. They're looking for the grave of the mother or the mother of um
Damien.
Damien. Yes.
Yeah.
So they get there. They find these tombs. They open the tomb of the mom, and it's like a dog or something.
Because the priest said
It's
that she was a jackal. A
correct.
jackal? Jackal.
Jackal, jackal, jackal. It's a jackal. And then they open the. That's actually kind of a moment for me because I didn't know what a jackal was
Yeah.
until you told me, and then I realized that in the tomb was like a dog or a
Yeah.
jackal or whatever. So that puts two and two together.
Yeah, at least that's I'm sure it's correct. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, but
Correct.
that's what I gathered. I didn't do any research on it.
Sure. So and then they open up the tomb of their real son, and they open up and they find the little corpse, and they find a hole in its head, like it'd been shot or stabbed in the head. And we basically figure out that, kind of like I mentioned earlier, the baby was not a stillborn. They killed it and they swapped
Yeah.
it with the son of Satan, the Antichrist. And yeah, so kind of fucked up.
Yeah, that unveiling like of the jackal corpse in the coffin. Okay, whatever. But when you uncover the baby's coffin and you see that little tiny skeleton with a hole in the skull,
Mhm.
that's fucked up. Yeah, it is. Now, I say it in multiple reviews. You want to push the boundaries? What's one of the boundaries? Violence against kids. That's
Yep,
something that's taboo. This movie didn't show it, but confirmed it.
correct.
Seeing a hole in a skull that small, that's enough to leave you haunting. That's probably the one still image from this movie that I remember the best.
Yeah.
That sticks with you, man. You're not supposed to see that kind of stuff. So,
Yep.
yeah, kudos to that, man. You get that golden rule of horror. I'll give you that one for sure.
Absolutely. So yeah, they definitely got that. And so they are attacked by these Rottweilers or whatever, like the one that Damien has, which we never even mentioned really. Um, the Mrs. Baylock just finds like a random Rottweiler I'm not gonna say random because it was put there intentionally, but she just brings this Rottweiler into the house.
The one
It's
from the
like
beginning of the movie.
correct. And she's like, this is Damon's new guard dog. And Gregory Peck's like, what? Like, we don't need a dog. Like, get that thing out of here. And then it
Yeah.
just keeps going, and the dog never leaves. And it just one day like goes back in the room and the Rottweiler's still there. And it's just like, dude, how hard is it for you to be like the man of the house and be like, get this fucking dog out of here?
Right. It's like, I thought I told you to remove that vicious animal from my son's room. I'm very disappointed in you.
Yeah, he's just like, nah, you shouldn't do that. And then he
You get
just
just a few more of those.
exactly. So uh when we had the scene where Gregory Peck's wife was hurt, she's in the hospital. She's fine, but she's recovering. She's got like a neck brace on. She's got like her arm like stuck in the air. She can't move, whatever. And he calls her. He's like, you need to get to Italy. You need to get to Rome or whatever. Like, we need to get back. And she's just like laying in the bed. He's like, I called a ride for you to come pick you up. And I'm like, dude, how's she gonna move? She's like, she's like
She can't even put a
paralyzed.
shirt on.
Exactly. So she's laying in the bed and she's like, okay, okay. She gets up and then um she's trying to get ready and then she hears something. She turns around and you see it's Mrs. Baylock and she does the classic like turns around and she's like screams and like
Oh no.
how it's like in Psycho where it's like and you had all this
Yeah.
time to like move but you didn't.
Yeah.
And she pushes her out the window and it's something with this lady and like falling out of stuff, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. The second time she was attempted murdered and it was also a fall. I don't know. It could have been anything, right?
This is probably my least favorite kill in the movie
It was pretty
because
goofy.
it's very goofy and then when she gets thrown out through the ambulance like the ambulance door opens and she like hangs out the back, I'm like, all right, come on.
She's just like, oh, like very student film, you know?
I'm like, okay, I get it, but it's really cheesy. But
Yeah. You had two solid kills and you followed it up with that.
so she's dead, and basically Gregory Peck and David Warner are the only people left that they're trying to finish this thing. And they go and they find Bugenhagen, I think was his name,
Yeah.
and they have to get these special knives to kill the Antichrist. They got to stab him, kind of like killing Dracula with the silver bullet or diamond or whatever.
Yeah.
They got to kill him, so they grab these and then he's very conflicted because I mean, and rightfully so. And either way, if it's your real son, an adopted son, whatever, he's like, hey, you got to kill your son. And even if you know that this little boy is the Antichrist, you've been his father for 5 years, and you're being told that you have to kill him. Like that's a tough situation to grapple with, no matter what's been happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that he was conflicted about it, like, and finally, like, losing control because he's a very contained, sternly spoken, like, I will turn this car around. Like, he's very, like, sure about his words. To finally see him, like, in turmoil about it, it was refreshing. Doing the whole ritual sacrifice of the kid, and you got to stab him in this way, starting with this one, and it's got to be on hallowed ground.
Yeah.
Dude, I can only take so much, You're already through shooting stars and date and times, scriptures, and eternal seas. Like, ugh, like, come on.
Correct.
Eventually it's overkill, but I don't know.
And the Bugenhagen guy mentions he's going to have 666 on his body. That's how you know he's the Antichrist. He's like,
Yeah.
I've bathed him. I've never seen it on his body. He's like, check underneath his hair. And the priest also had 666 on his body because he was a Satanist. It was like on his thigh or something.
Yeah.
So Gregory Peck goes home. He's got these knives. He's well shit, before that. Sorry, let me get to this point because this is probably
That's the highlight of the movie.
it's yeah. So you know they're conflicted on what to do. Gregory Peck's like, I can't do this. He throws the knives away, and then David Warner is like, okay, if you aren't going to do it, I'm going to do it. So he goes and gets the knives, and again, we get one of the best kills ever, ever. That's right, I'm saying it ever. And he's sitting there trying to pick up these knives off the ground, and there's this truck that's in front of him that's like holding a bunch of like pieces of glass. And all of a sudden, the brake, very, very final destination, the brake kind of gets loose and it's coming down, it's coming down, it's coming down at a high speed. And all of a sudden, the sheet of glass just slides off and he looks up and it just decapitates him. And his head like spins around and it does this like video game like style where it shows it from like five different angles. It's
Like,
like, it's sick. And the first time I saw it, I literally was like, I was
yeah.
shocked. Like,
Yeah,
A
that
plus
was
kill.
tough. Like it'd be one thing if it was just like most modern movies like 2000s and above will just go shing and then like the body with no head will just like fall with like a
Correct.
bloody stump. But no, dude, like this practical head tumbled and bounced on camera. And Richard Donner, I know he was just like, that's it. That's a wrap. We got it.
Dude,
Like
A
easily.
plus.
I don't know enough horror kills in, present memory to think about what the top 10 might be. I think this could be in there. Top 15 at least in terms of
Gotta
horror
be.
kills. Gotta be. Gotta be. Dude, when it was over and I sent you the gif of the head roll, I sent you the gif of that. I
Yeah.
saved it to my phone and then saved it to the downloads folder. And it's the most recent download in that folder. Look at my thumbnail in my gallery.
It's
It's just this
hilarious.
rubber head.
That is so funny. I,
Dude, it's
I
tough.
that's great. I remember, yeah, as soon as you got done watching it, you sent me the gif of the kill, and I was like, yes. I was like, no matter
Yes.
what, at least he liked this
That
kill.
was yeah, that was tough. That was 10 out of 10. Didn't even have to be spewing blood like a Saw movie. It
Nope.
was practical effects win every single time. So yeah,
Exactly.
that was a payoff. That was nice.
So, and then this is it. We're building up to the final win. Gregory Peck gets home. His buddy died. His wife's died. He's like, all right, I'm going all in. He's like, I'm about to kill Antichrist. So he gets home. It's really dark at night. He doesn't see anybody home, and the Rottweiler's still there. It's roaming the house. He's able to trap the Rottweiler downstairs, and he shuts him down in like the cellar so he can't get out. All right, he's taken care of. So then he goes and he gets a pair of scissors and he goes up to Damien's room. Remember, he's like, if he has a 666 on his body, it's confirmed that he's the Antichrist. He's looking through his head. He's like picking up like a light, looking at it, and then he's cutting it off and he sees it. He's like, oh. It's like, I
Picks
didn't
the
want to.
exact spot to shave.
I know. It's so weird. It's like, how do you find that? And how did the kid not wake up?
Is also you got that kid as an infant without hair. So how did you miss
That's very true. He either
that?
had like no hair or like very minimal hair. You're telling me
Yeah.
you never like wash his hair and you're like, what's that?
You never check your kid for lice or something. Come on, dude.
Yeah, there are a couple, loopholes in this movie that it's kind of
Yeah.
like, how'd you not figure that out?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
But he identifies it and they do that. I guess you could call it a fight scene at the end of the movie with Miss
Baylock.
Baylock. Yeah, Miss Baylock and him tumbling through the house with a pair of scissors or something. I don't know. What you think about that fight scene?
It was okay, but I was glad to see her get her comeuppance because she's very good at being like the evil like
Yeah.
nanny character.
Yep.
So I'm glad she got killed. It really wasn't even like, that even that crazy. It's weird because this movie does some insane effects with kills, and then like she gets stabbed in like the shoulder. She's like, I'm dead.
Yeah, like okay. Like some of the kills are just like you falling out a window and getting stabbed in the shoulder, and the other one is a decapitated prosthetic head on a plane of glass.
Yeah. I guess they maybe wanted to be like realistic because maybe if you actually got a situation like that with someone, you'd probably just be like wallowing around on the floor the whole time, and it'd take like 10 minutes before someone actually stabs somebody.
Yeah, it's a
I
little
don't
late in
know.
the game to be realistic, though.
Yeah, I agree. She should have got thrown out of the window. That'd have been
Something.
perfect considering what she did to his wife.
Yeah.
So that happens. Damien, Gregory Peck grabs Damien. Um, he's like, all right, come on, we're going to the church. He grabs him, and I never really mentioned this much, but the child actor in the movie, I think he only made one more actor appearance, and it was actually in the remake, 2006. He made like a small cameo. I guess he just didn't want to be an actor. So it was kind of like a cool nod there, but
Sweet.
he he very much doesn't have any like dialogue where like the camera points to him and he says a line. It's very much him just like laughing and crying and
And being a
just
5-year-old, yeah.
being a 5-year-old. He's like, "Oh, daddy, I want to play. I want like," and I think that really helps the movie because it's not. It would have been very cheesy if like the camera turns to him and he turns into like Chucky, you
He just
know?
goes, "Come on, Kruger."
Yeah, oh God. God, no. Uh, I think that works really, really well in this movie,
Yes.
and the kid did a great job because he doesn't say anything, and his look is very like at the ending we'll talk about. His look is just perfect.
Mhm. Yeah, it's it, the I don't hate the child actor in this movie because he barely does any acting. He basically Richard Donner was probably just like, "All right, go play," and he just hit record on the camera. So
Well,
uh,
apparently he got the role, the child actor, because he went for an audition and Richard Donner was like, "I want you to like to attack me," and apparently the kid ran up, attacked him, and then punched him in the nuts. And he was like, "All right, this kid wins," and
trust your gut on that one.
that's how they picked him.
It's like, "Yep, kid, you're the Antichrist." Yeah, yeah. So Gregory Peck takes him to the hallowed ground, speeding through a gated property and getting the police's attention. He gets to the church. He gets to the altar and he goes to have that final moment with the ceremonial knife. And he kind of freezes a little bit. And Damien says one or two things. Cops bust in.
He's like, "Daddy, stop, Daddy, stop." I want you to think about
Yeah.
that because and I don't mean this in a bad way. You being a father, I mean, could
Yeah.
you imagine being in like a situation like that? But what if you knew your actual adopted
Yeah.
was the Antichrist? Like, would you be able to do it still?
It's tough, and you wouldn't know until you're in that scenario. Like it's a dilemma because your brain is telling you like, yeah, there is no other option, but like your gut's like, dude, what the hell, like second guessing yourself. I get it. And Gregory Peck, he froze in that dilemma. He did it well. I think that dilemma was was I think I think that dilemma was built up to very well. Gregory Peck spent the majority of this movie not believing, and then once he finally believes, even then he's still like is holding on to this doubt a
Correct.
little bit. So everything about this movie, like I said multiple times, has been written in stone. Everything is a fact. Everything is matter of fact. There is no shadow of a doubt about any of this religious mumbo jumbo. But Gregory Peck, even
It's
though,
like it's like when you hear something bad that someone did and you know the person and they're like a really good person, you're like, I don't believe it. I can't
yeah,
believe it. Like, I
yeah,
don't believe, and then you're literally confronted with the truth and you're still like,
denial,
but
yeah.
you're, yeah, denial. But yeah,
Yeah, it's so shocking and it's so just like paradigm shifting that you can't believe it. So he freezes, cops bust in and they get a shot off.
dude,
And
what do you think about? I love that ending right there. Like,
I
oh, go
that's
ahead.
that's a great ending if the cops were onto his case earlier. Like that's probably my only note. And who am I gonna give Richard Donner notes? But if the cops had like some kind of sneaking suspicion that there was like child abuse or some kind of sneaking suspicion in the first or second act that Gregory Peck was up to something mysterious or he was going crazy or if he had like anything, if the police had any suspicion of wrongdoing of Gregory Peck's character at any other point in the movie, I think that would have paid off nicely. But they didn't. The police kind of just showed up as a force that's never been mentioned in this movie. So I don't know. That would be my only change. Would be put the police on Gregory Peck's trail. Have Gregory Peck show up on their radar at some point in this movie to make it feel like it's more of a payoff.
I agree with what you're saying, but I view it from because it is like maybe a bit unreasonable how they just see this guy speeding and he runs into a church. Like, I don't think at any point they saw Damien like, oh, he's got a kid hostage. Like, we got to make it quick. Like, they didn't see
Yeah.
that. And so, how do they know to go in the church and just shoot and kill him? Because,
Right.
oh, he's going to kill. I mean, how do they know that? My only thought process is that they're like, where is this going? Why is this guy doing this? And all of a sudden they walk in the church, like, oh shit, he's going to stab a kid. Boom. And they just like
Yeah.
split second, they pull out a gun and I don't know. Uh, but yeah, it's while he's in the process of trying to stab him, they shoot. It's very much a did he kill him? Who died first? Kind of a little cliffhanger, and then we get the final scene. Turns out that he was unsuccessful in killing Damien. They lay both him and his wife to rest. Um, they're both dead. The Antichrist lives on, and they do this little zoom in shot where it's Damien, and he's like turns around. He does like the perfect little smile.
Hmm.
That's the best acting he's done. He's really the only acting he's done in the whole movie, but he gets
Yeah.
that smile just perfect. It's not like a happy smile. It's kind of like a like yeah, like I got you, and
Hmm.
it's perfect. And I guess this is explained on in the sequels, which I haven't seen, which I'll probably watch at some point just cause. Um, he is adopted by Robert's brother, who was the president of the United States.
Yeah.
And they mention that somewhere in the movie that the Antichrist is able
Bor-
to move up through politics, and
Born
that's
out of politics. Yeah.
correct. So yeah, that's the Omen. I mean, I know this has been a long breakdown, but this is a long freaking movie.
That's a long
It's a
movie.
long
Yeah.
movie.
It's a slow burn breakdown.
It's a slow burn breakdown. There's a lot of shit. But I guess wait a minute. I'm gonna let you talk. I'm gonna go grab something real quick. I'll be right
Yes,
back.
grab it. Reviewing the plot of this movie with him, it's all the pieces are there. There's good writing. There's good acting. There's not overacting on the part of the child, which is very hard to obtain, believe it or not. The story is there. The religious undertones are there. I don't know about how accurate the poem from the priest is, or the scriptures or whatnot. All the pieces are there, but I guarantee this man's pulling out a Blu-ray right now. What's he got? Blu-ray? What you got? What you got? You got the physical movie? Got the
Listen,
Blu-ray?
man. Listen. You know I've got it.
Oh,
I've
I know
got
you
the
do.
Omen collection.
What's that? How many movies is that?
Four. It
Four of them?
is the
There's a four
first.
on the front. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's got. I guess it's a four. It's got the three. The original, the second, the third, and then the 2006 remake, which apparently is a shot for shot remake,
Hmm.
but apparently they give more backstory to Father Brennan's character in that film. So I guess I'll check it out. And then this little guy right here I picked up
It's a VHS.
little VHS copy
Ooh.
for
Ooh.
what I think I bought this for $2 the other week. They
Wow.
had a local. We both went to a pop culture fest and they were selling all kinds of stuff, and I was like, dude, $2? Yeah, why not? I bought it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Even if I never watch it, like this shit just looks cool.
And it looks good on VHS. You fire up that box TV with all that static making your hair stand up. You pop in a VHS, it looks nice. It feels nice.
We're gonna have to like review some movies and watch them on VHS just to
It's
see
totally
like
different.
how they
Yeah.
feel.
It's like,
Because
dude, you try to play the original Halo on your Xbox Series X on a 4K TV. It's not the same as popping it on the OG Xbox on a box TV, dude. Not the same.
it's not even close, and it just goes to show you know it matters how you watch a movie. Like I've seen Halloween like 100 times. I have not seen Halloween on VHS yet, but
Yeah.
I'd like to.
Yeah, dude. And when we saw Halloween 2018, we had never seen it in theaters.
Nope.
So your first exposure, and that's why we talk about our exposure to this movie at the beginning of every review, is because our first exposure defines how we interpret it. Are we watching it on our phone with one headphone in, or are we giving it our full attention? So, yeah, very good point there. I need to up my VHS collection. I only have a couple, but
I've my grandma has a ton of horror VHS, and it's
really,
so funny because when I used to stay at her house as a kid, I would just go and look at all of them and just like grab it and like read the back of it and just look at
Yeah.
it because that's something else I like about physical media. And I'll this isn't physical media rant. I promise we'll get to the ending. It's just cool to have it and it's a
Yeah.
package the packaging and you look at it and you read it and you just it's better than just looking at it on a screen.
It's always better than just searching and hitting play on a TV, man. Having that tangible thing, it's like going to the library or going to the bookstore. But
Exactly. Perfect.
what I was saying when you were out there is like all the pieces are here. This is a good movie through and through. This has got great writing. It's got great acting. It's got religious undertones. It's got some taboo aspects to it. It's the pace is consistent. It's not all over the place. The suspense is built up. But even after dissecting it with you, I still feel like I'm missing something. And I think in my gut, that what I'm missing is the scare factor.
Hmm.
I feel like this movie, and I've said this before, this movie's not scary, at least not to me. It's interesting, it's entertaining, it's compelling. Um, it's it's got the gravitas of the Antichrist, of course,
Hmm.
but I was never scared of Damien. Damien.
Sure.
I was never scared of Mrs. Baylock. I was never scared of the dog. I was never scared for Gregory Peck. I never felt like he was in danger. So I guess that's just what I'm missing. Because it was entertaining enough to keep me awake late at night.
Sure.
But I think it's just the scare factor. I think it's missing that. Exorcist had more of a scare factor, obviously, but Omen is good. The Omen is a very good movie, but I don't own the physical on this, and it'd have to be a really good deal for me to get the physical on this. I'll be completely honest.
Really? Even the original?
Even the original, I might pick up the collection if it's like $10 or less, but I
Yeah, I
just
think this collection was like $10 because
yeah.
I always thought the Omen was like shitty. I
Yeah,
always thought it was like people like the Omen. I'm like, dude, I heard that sucks, and I
people don't
just
really talk about the Omen. They talk about the Ring and Final Destination, but they never
that's
really
what I'm
talk about the
saying.
Omen.
That's what I said in the beginning. It's like it's underrated in a way where like people are like, dude, like 70s like horror classics, you need to see the Omen. No one ever
Yeah,
really says that. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, this was like $10. That's why I bought it. And then I watched the original Omen. And I just happened to really, really like it. So I'll break mine down real quick and well actually no, I'll let you go. Go ahead. You were already kind of going through your
All right. Well, this movie is not immune to my four golden rules. You know, I do that at every review. So let's get into it. Golden rule number one: don't show me the monster. The monster in this movie arguably is Damien.
Mhm.
Um, but Damien takes such a passive role. It's like saying Jason was the monster in the first Friday the 13th movie. It wasn't. It was his mom. So it's hard to say that. I would say that the monster in this movie is the quote unquote antichrist and all the evil that comes with that presence. I guess the presence of the antichrist. Um, I'll give it to you. You know, Damien doesn't have a lot of screen time. I think he's got less than 10 minutes. You know, the gravitas of the Antichrist and his presence on this earth is really well explained without being overindulgent on camera. You know, there's not scenes of him hunting down his mom in the hallway. There's not scenes of just like sermons being held in the basement or some stupid shit like that. It's decent, you know. It's you understand without being force fed the evil. So yeah, I'd give you that. You didn't show me the monster. I'll give you that rule number one. Rule number two: be scary at all times, not just when the threat is on screen. Like I just said, and like I've said with other movies, scare factor is not there. I can't say you were scary at all times. It felt like a ticking clock. It felt like a stressful situation that you have to get to the bottom of it. But a ticking clock is not scary. A ticking clock is not scary at all times. So I can't give you that one. Although I do appreciate the almost horror-esque buddy road trip of trying to uncover this mystery and putting all the clues together, a la Da
Mhm.
Vinci Code. It's not it. It's not it, man. It's not scary. So you don't get that one. Rule number three: don't rely only on jump scares. You don't only rely on jump scares. You know, when you are scary, it's more shocking than scary. There's some shocking imagery. The hole in the baby's skull, the The decapitation, how it lingers on the decapitation, even her being hung in the first 5 minutes, slamming against the window, this lifeless body, very real, very grounded. The pole going through his back, you hear the thud, you feel the thud. It looks real. You could have told me this was a real death on camera that they caught, and I would have believed you. So, yeah, it's you do not only rely on jump scares, you have very shocking imagery, some taboo imagery in there too. I'll give you that one. That's 2 out of 3 so far. And the fourth rule, and the most important, is push the boundaries. This is a tricky one because all the boundaries that you wanted to push, The Exorcist already pushed them, right?
Correct.
So it looks like no matter how well you differentiate yourself and no matter how lazy it is to compare the two, you will always come up second to The Exorcist. It's just the fact. And it's not just because you came after it, but it's because The Exorcist is the boundary pushing movie. So there's that. But like I said, the scene that stuck with me is the hole in the baby skull in the coffin. That is not something you see in every horror movie. That's unsettling. That's not okay. That's very the religious undertones or the anti-religious undertones been done, but The Exorcist didn't have a hole in a baby skull. So I'm gonna give you that one because I respect the hell out of that, and I respect the hell out of Richard Donner. So you get 3 out of my 4 golden rules. That puts you in the B range. I'm gonna give this one a flat B. That's a good grade. This
Yeah.
is a legendary movie from a legendary director with a legendary actor in it. Um, it should be known by every horror film and by every horror film reviewer and every horror film enthusiast. It should be known. You should know it. Um, I can't say I'm going to recommend it. And if you're looking for something entertaining or scary, but this is film history enough, and it's there, man. It's there in the class of horror classics. So I'll give it to you. B, solid B. The Omen. I'm okay with that.
Awesome. Um, I I've seen this movie twice now. I still really, really like it. I think there are some things in this movie that they do extremely well. They've got, in my opinion, two of the best kills I've ever seen ever in a horror movie. To me, the score is great. The acting is pretty solid. There's a kind of a, I'm not gonna say a complex story, but there's enough there where it's not just cut and dry slasher trying to kill people. There's a Da Vinci Code-esque story there. Um, there's, I'm invested in Gregory Peck and kind of to see what he does. I'm invested in
Mhm.
Damien to kind of see like where this goes. I do think it does drag in some aspects. They probably could have cut about 20 minutes out of this to really bring it down some. And it is a slow burn and it's not scary. Uh, maybe it's because I watched this in my 20s. It's not scary. If I saw this when I was like 6 or 7, I'd have been like, holy shit, this is terrifying. But
Mhm.
this day and age, it's not a scary movie, but I think that's okay. Um, it's not scary in the way that, it's gonna make you, sleep with the lights on, but
Right.
there's some imagery in there that's pretty, that can be kind of disturbing. And then there's also if you think about the story itself and you try to feel like you're in the character's shoes, I think it works. It's kind of like a mystery thriller as
Yeah.
opposed to like a horror movie. What I really like about this movie is that it deals with themes of like religion and stuff like that, but it doesn't do it like you kind of said. It doesn't beat you over the head with it. Yes, there's crosses, there's priests, there's churches, there's the Antichrist, but it isn't like this every other movie where there's an exorcism and someone's possessed. And so, they're not trying to rip off The Exorcist. Yes, it happened like 3 years after, but they go about it in their own way where it feels original enough where it's not like, okay, they're trying to be The Exorcist. It
Mhm.
didn't feel like that to me. Um, I think this movie is underrated. I think that more people should check it out. I think there's got a lot of things going for it. I I was gonna give this a flat A. I'm now gonna give it an A minus. I still think it's that good. I think people should check it out. They should own it just to say you've seen it. And I like this movie a lot. It's probably, I'm gonna argue it's probably my top 15 to
Mm.
12, maybe it might be 10, maybe. I don't know. Whenever we do our ranking, we'll decide. But it's in that upper echelon because I just enjoy it that much. I really do. It's not scary, but there's a lot of stuff here that works for me, and I enjoy it.
So you want to see the prequel then?
I do, yes. Do you
I think so. Yeah,
think so?
I feel like I should. I feel like I owe it to film
I feel
history.
like you should at least see we should at least see the prequel. Like
Yeah,
screw the sequels because I don't really care. Um, Especially the remake.
yeah,
But yeah, I feel like we should since we just watched this, we probably should watch the prequel because it's
yeah,
out. But yeah, I mean I think this to me it's a classic. I think people should check it out. I'm gonna go A minus.
yeah. That's pretty good. And you're right. It didn't try to be The Exorcist. It tried to dabble in that pool of subject matter with the religious allegory, but The Exorcist didn't have the Antichrist. The Exorcist didn't have prophecies and scripture translating. It didn't have all that. So it in the same subject matter differentiated itself enough. So you're right on that.
Correct. So all right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in and watching and reviewing another one with us here on Every Horror Film, where horror is forever. If you like what you see, like the video, subscribe, check us out. Let us know if you want to see something in the comments. We've had a couple people say they've seen movies for the first review that we've done. They've seen it for the first time. Some people said that Late Night with the Devil was like their favorite horror movie of all time.
Wow.
That's interesting. We're all about this kind of conversation. So let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll definitely check it out. Absolutely. And we will see you guys on the next one.
The mummy has now been located.
The living mummy. The living mummy.
Bullets won't stop.
Some creature out of time.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
He's completely out of control.
I saw those bodies.
Is he a man or a monster?
You actually knew a werewolf in a peaceful town where nothing ever happened.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
In the mystical regions of Transylvania.